أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى آل أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. السلام عليكم. Well, inshallah, we'll start today with the second session, and thank you very much for attending the second session, inshallah. Just a quick review where we were. So again, we are trying to see why are we not knowing our Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first thing we started that we took some guidance from Quran about it, that we need to perceive rather than to see subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, why Allah sent Islam? To know that, we need to know what Islam is, and that is surrender to God. But to understand or to see how can we reach to know is to understand what is surrender. So surrender is, instead of just saying that I'm surrendering to God, is whether actually my action is in surrender to God. The problem that we have is we always seek and feel that we are independent, and that's how we have been taught that we should be independent, depend on ourselves to be better. And what we saw yesterday, for example, in that movie, even if I'm, in one of the ideas that they are preaching for, even if I'm not good, but I have to believe in myself. So that's amazing. But the reality is, we're never independent, because if Allah really leave us for a second, we will perish. He sustained everything in us. Our body really totally depend on all what Allah has given us. We don't feel. We don't tell the nucleus in the cells to function. We don't tell the hormones to be secreted. We don't have this power. We are not really independent. So we are totally dependent on subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like this wave in the sea. It does have its dimension, but it totally has its power from the ocean. It has the character from the ocean, but it has this limited time and space that it can be different, and this is the limitation. And all of us are waves, but these waves comes and goes, and the ocean exists. So this wave has something from the ocean, and that's what Allah told us, وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي, breath into him from my spirit. This is what keeps us going. So we are totally dependent on this spirit that he gave us. Now, what prevents us from knowing him is whatever makes us feel separate is what prevents us from him, and that's me, because I believe that I am something, so I'm separate, and this is the ego and the I-ness that I formed. I always think that I'm different from the surrounding, and I keep on building this boundary around me, and this separation and this space that I have, which makes me usually think I am different. So Allah has created us to reach him, and he sent some guidance, and that's the prophets that he said. What to prevent us from reaching him is because we are not surrendering to what he sent us, and not surrendering to his guidance. So we do what we want rather than what he wants, and unless we reach that we want that what he wants rather than what I want, it's difficult to say we are surrendering to him, and difficult to say we are following Islam. Now, why are we not surrendering? Because mainly we believe in ourselves. We believe that we are so independent and so self-sufficient. And unfortunately, although this is good for building confidence, but unfortunately it builds overconfidence, and this leads to arrogance, and this usually comes from excess of things. excess of money, excess of power, and nowadays excess of knowledge, because we think we know everything. Why should we need somebody to help us? So Allah described His beloved Prophet as the best person who reached to wanting, or he reached that he wants that he does not want. He wants. So Allah described His beloved Prophet as the best person who reached there by, nor does he speak out of his own desire. It's but an inspiration that he inspires. So, and the Prophet has described Imam Ali as, if you want to see a dead person walking, look at Ali, because he made this ego dead. He actually disengaged himself from this existence in this dunya, and by this, as if he is dead in this dunya, but in reality he is permanently living. So the most difficult. Sorry, I'll skip this. How does our ego illusion get formed? We talked about this from the childhood. In the childhood, because of this loneliness that the child feels when they are alone, and the body gives them challenges, they start feeling they are something. They are separate, and they start forming their boundary, and this boundary increases by feeling my body, my carer, my food, and my toy, and all that make this separation more and more, and the ego and the I-ness get formed, and unfortunately get confused as being the reality, while our reality is beyond this world. When we die, we lose this, and that's the big shock for us when we die. So ego lives on conflict and pain, and it has to keep on doing something in our mind, and this is the waswas, and this is the activity that it lives on. So it's our ego, it's the biggest idol that we worship, and even if we kill smaller idols, because we are still worship me, this idol keeps on pushing further idols in our way. And from our Prophet ﷺ, he said, polytheism in the heart of a human is more hidden than the walk of a black ant in the darkest of nights on the hardest of rocks. And it can be that difficult to detect this in our hearts. So let's continue now. Why can't we know Him? What makes us blind from knowing Almighty God? Allah takes a pride in what? In His best creation, and that's who?
Humans.
Humans? Human, that's right. So us is His best creation. And why it's His best creation? Because it's the only creation who can have an attribute that Allah is proud of. What Allah is proud of? What attribute Allah is proud of? Is He proud of being unjust? No. What's He proud of? Example. He's proud of being merciful. He's proud of being just. So, I mean, even if whatever Allah is proud of, it's something that a human can have. And if we assume that, for example, that Allah is proud of being unjust, also we can have, but He is not. Right? So Allah has, and this is the hadith Qudsi from our Prophet ﷺ, Allah has created a human similar to His form. So what is the form?
The attributes.
Right, it's the attribute, because form is how we know, or how we imagine Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, because we don't know a picture for Him. We imagine Him by His attribute, through His merciful, His just, His powerful, and that's His form. And Allah has created human on His form. But the problem is, all the bad attribute, it's what? It's the lack of the good one. So something has prevented the good attribute to be reflected, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the aim of Islam. So Islam is is to reflect the good attribute. And the Prophet said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I have been sent to perfect the best of attributes. So because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows better, and He sent us those who knows better to guide us to perfection. So that's what where He wants to guide us to, by teaching us how to reflect all these chosen attributes. Okay? So in Hadith al-Qudsi, Allah says, neither heaven nor earth have the capacity to take me, but the heart of my believing servant has. So the believing servant has the capacity to take all these attributes. So we have the potential to be. Whether we can or not, it depends on how much we do work for it. And that's the only way to know Him Almighty. And He said in another hadith, the heart of the believer is God's throne, because that's where He can sit. Otherwise, really nothing else in the world can cope with this big challenge. So it's us, by not surrendering, because we think we know better, we fail to reflect this goodness. Now let's concentrate on reflect. Reflect, we share this with what?
The mirror.
Good. How does he know that? Right. So we share this with a mirror. So what's the difference then between us and a mirror?
We're living.
That's right. But in the reflection part. Mm-hmm.
We reflect our actions and the mirror reflects what it sees.
No, we don't reflect our action.
It reflects only sight. It doesn't reflect anything else. It only reflects sight. Well, we can reflect goodness and we can reflect anything, but it can only reflect sight.
That's very good. I'll ask you a question. Can the mirror not reflect?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
How?
It gets dirty.
No, a clean mirror.
Yes.
Can
Put a
it?
cover on it.
Alright.
Oh no, but that would.
No,
but that would
only.
mean,
Okay,
but
I'm
it
not
would
saying
reflect-
there's any other condition. It's clear mirror. Can it not reflect?
No. It must reflect.
But a
sight.
human can.
By
So, what's the meaning of kafara? Because always when we say kuffar or kafara, we think about unbeliever or the idol worshippers or something like that. But really, in Arabic, kafara means cover or hide. So, what kuffar means is those who covered the power of reflection, or covered something that they can reflect. In Quran, Allah says, "Inna hadaynahu sabil imma shakiran wa imma kafura." Truly, we guided him on the way. Either he will be thankful or ungrateful. Now, what's thankful then? Thankful is showing appreciation. If somebody gives you a good present, let's say somebody gave you a car. So, and it's his car, but he just gave it to you for a week. And then you drove the first day and you smashed it and destroyed it. Are you appreciative? Not really. This is not appreciation. Or actually you went around and you didn't say it's his. You say, oh, it's yours, and you're proud of it. This is also not thankful. While ungrateful is covering it. So that's the second thing, the unappreciation. So this is kafir and the first one is shakir. So now, we may have different understanding of Surah Kafirun. Now, can you imagine now with this understanding of kafara, how would you understand kafirun? قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ لَا أَعْبُدُ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ. The usual translation, say, oh disbeliever, because that's how we understand kafirun. I do not worship what you worship. But if you now extrapolate what we've just discussed
He's talking to nearly everybody.
Exactly, and it's beautiful meaning. When you now saying it, say, "Oh, ungrateful who covers and not reflects. I do not worship your idols because your idols is you, and my idol is me. I'm trying not to worship me." So the meaning really will be so much beautiful. قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ لَا أَعْبُدُ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ. And you don't also worship what I worship, because you worship yourself or your money or your coffee or your tea or your TV or your computer or whatever your idol is, while I'm trying to worship the one and the only one. So what make a believer not reflecting then? Now let's talk about the mirror. There are 5 conditions. You mentioned a few. One is the mirror is a problem, it's deficient. In the old days, how way they do mirror, they actually get a metal and they what do you call it? Polish it until it start reflecting. It's really hard work to get a mirror in the old days. Now it's much easier. So first is not very well polished, so it's deficient, so it does not reflect well. The other thing, it was good, but then got rusted. Or actually somebody turned it totally the other way, so it does not reflect. Or somebody, as you said, put something to block it, so it's covered. Or it is in the right direction and everything, but well, I mean, it's not directed to, it's trying to direct itself, but really doesn't know it. So what's the difference between number 5 and number 3?
It's on the right. It's trying to get there. It's still not there, while the other one's completely lost.
Right. So this one is ghafla, it's heedlessness, while here it's ignorance. We don't know where to look. Is that right? Okay. Now let's apply the mirror example practically on ourselves. The mirror itself is deficient. Think about an example. If we are the mirror, how can we be deficient and not reflecting?
We don't share attributes
Share with whom?
with RSR.
Right. But I mean, what makes us like that? I mean, the first thing is, I mean, that's the essence, that the mirror itself is not good. And for example, somebody who's mentally challenged, they don't have the mentality to reflect, so we cannot blame them. The child is still building himself, and usually they build the ego to start with, so they cannot really reflect very well, but that's where we have to help them to build it in the right way so they can pick it up. Or somebody who actually neglected religion right from beginning and stayed like that forever. For example, you can find a professor in the university or a big head, but they know nothing about religion because they never looked at it. So they are totally deficient. They cannot reflect anything. So that's one thing. Well, what about if the essence is good, but then it got rusted? Quran says, no, but what they used to do became like a rust upon their hearts. So actions can do that, unfortunately. Or in another expression, the hearts, there are locks. So it's either a rust or a lock which prevent it from reflecting. So what we do, our indulgence in the worldly pleasures can do that. So sinning in general, doing sin, as the hadith said, sin starts as a black dot on the heart and keep on adding it, keep on making it black until make it all black. Makes it all black. So that's a problem. But these are sins. What about not sins? What about too much of things? And that's our main problem. Too much of things, it's indulgent. And this indulgent will leave some rust, unfortunately. And it can be different level of rusting. The third one is it's turned away. What can turn the mirror away? So the person is obedient to God, he's righteous person, he does his rituals. What happened then? What turned him?
People.
Well, the problem is he's not really directed himself to Allah at all.
He's doing it for someone else.
So he is so much engaged in something else. So the direction is totally different. The direction is he's caught up with fulfilling his material world. So I'm so much into my work. When I talk, whoa, I did that at work. I'm so much to my study. I'm so much to this. I'm so much to my games. I'm so much to my soccer. I'm so much into everything else but Allah. My direction is not the direction of Allah. So rituals alone is not enough to save us. We need to ponder. We need to think about Him. We need to focus on Him. And that's what He describes. Those who remember Allah standing, sitting and lying on their sides. They do remember Him in all these positions and reflect on the creation of heaven and earth. Oh our Lord, You have not created this in vain. Glory be to You. Save us then from the punishment of fire. And save us because we are now directed to You. So engaging in applying rituals and rules only does not bring spirituality. For example, in Hajj. In Hajj you can see many people are so much engaged in applying the rules. Unfortunately, this is the big challenge because they may totally lose spirituality because of that. Because you need to direct yourself not to the rules only, although they are very important by themselves, but you need to direct yourself to who put the rules. So this is for those who are doing the ibadah. What about those who are not doing and spending in lust and desire? Definitely this is much worse. So you can see, the problem is this is the direction and what it should be, but then that's what the world gives us. It's so much distraction. It distracts us from the right direction, and then the mirror would turn and we turn to that. And this is the third. The fourth is the veil. The veil comes and blocks. Now what's the veil? What brings us? So the person is obedient, controlling the desire, focusing on seeking God, but something has veiled him from God. And what this? It can be a rigidly held beliefs and ideas. Somebody who always he was raised up in such a situation or such an idea, and then when things try to change, it's really difficult to change.
It's already blocked them out.
And that can work, unfortunately, as a block. And what makes it difficult to change is the pride of our knowledge. Usually when I come to learning something, I don't come with the humility. I don't come with saying, okay, this is a new thing, let me see, let me change, let me think about it. Definitely I'm not talking about something which is so obvious and important like Tawheed, but all other thoughts needs to be looked at, and we have to remove this I on my. It's my knowledge, so I cannot change it. So normally when we grow up, there are lots of like and dislike, do and don'ts, and this will make a map for us. And in psychology they call it the map making period, and this will form my worldview. So how I look at the world, it comes from what I learned from the like and dislike, from the do and don'ts. Then when I grow up, now I have a map. Now if somebody, just imagine, you do have a map to go to your school, but then somebody said, oh, what about trying this new map? What's the response? No, look, I've been trying this for ages and it's good, I don't want to change. It's easier. Or we look at it with a humility, well, let's try it. Not many people do the let's try, fortunately. So the mirror is in the right direction. It's clear. It's not rusted, but something blocking it. And this block is mainly or usually comes with this little me. It's my knowledge that I don't want to change. Or sometimes this is a luminous block, like philosophically I do believe in God. Does that mean I know Him? Not really. So this philosophy blocked me, and that's probably what in Dua Sha'ban Imam Sajjad says, حتى تخرق أبصار القلوب حجب النور, until the insight of hearts go through the veils of light. The veils of light means the veils of knowledge. I have to pass it to reach where Allah wants me to reach. The last one is it's tilted. So the person is obedient, controlling desire, focusing, and there is no veils, but still not there. Why? Because they don't look where they should look. Now, and they don't know where they to look. So the difference between the third and fifth, we said, is the difference between heedlessness and ignorance. How does that happen? I mean, normally when we want to do something, we need to use the right channel and also the right method. For example, in this maze, if I want to start from here, this is the right channel. And then when I go, if I choose this channel, this is the wrong channel, it doesn't take me. But also the method, if I decided to jump to here, also I don't reach. So we have to use the right channel and the right method to reach. So in these children cubes, if we don't put it in the right way and we just go haphazardly, they will fall. We should use the logical way and the right method, and it will come and it will reach to where it should reach. Another example, this gentleman is looking at a mirror. This gentleman wants to look at the back of his head. Can he?
No.
Try. You can, right?
You can actually take a photo.
Yeah, but you cannot do it like in a real
mirror.
Right. Unless you have another mirror.
Yeah, true.
Right? So that should be the right direction. So one mirror is not enough. Jumping to the back mirror is not enough. It has to go through one mirror to the other mirror. So that's the right direction to reach to that particular knowledge. So to get the knowledge about God, certain type of knowledge needs to come together in the right way, in the right sequence, and this will produce a new knowledge, and this will bring us to a new level of understanding. So when we look at this, فَلْيَنْظُرْ الْإِنسَانُ طَعَامَهُ, let man look at his food. When they asked Imam Baqir alayhi salam, what does that mean? He said, it's the knowledge that he gains from where he gains it. So it's very important from where we get this knowledge and how we get it and how to put it together. So really, if we reach to that stage, we need to know that the knowledge comes from the Prophet ﷺ through the right channel, through Ahlul Bayt, and the sequence should be in the right way so we can reach, inshallah. So knowledge can be sometimes start as impure. So can you imagine of impure knowledge? A knowledge which has some goodness but also mixed. I'll give you a rough example like Christianity. Start with has something, but then mixed. And then followed by some godless knowledge.
Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang Theory after Christianity, that would come to denial of God. Or it started pure. For example, a Muslim. Then he read about Big Bang Theory. Right. It comes to doubt. So it's very important to know from where we get our knowledge. So if it started as a pure and then added a pure and pure, it will bring the acceptance and faith, and that will guide us to the real knowledge of God subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, why do we need a mirror? Why Allah need a mirror? Why He created the mirror so we can see Him? Why don't we see Him directly?
We can't.
That's right. Also to accentuate. For example, when you look at this diamond, it will be much nicer when you look at what the diamond can do and all the reflection. So can you imagine, like the Prophet and His Bayt is there, like here reflecting. It's beautiful. So as to show the beauty, the mirror can show more beauty of the attribute, and also because of our limitation, because we cannot. So to summarize, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the diamond, and actually this is not a right example because He's everywhere, but just for our understanding, we unfortunately cover Him by our will and our ego. And the way to do that, either by the mirror is quite deficient, so we never actually build the mirror, or then got rusted, or it's directed in totally wrong place, or it's veiled, or it's tilted. Now, there are some degrees. I mean, we are saying that the only way to remove or to reflect is to remove the block, and this is the self-will. Now, how can we do that? I need to think in everything I do, why I'm doing it. Am I doing it for the sake of God, or I'm doing it for me? But in this question is what's wrong? Still, am I doing it? I am doing it. It's this little I still there. But when we practice, we reach then to the level, inshallah, if we can, the I disappear. So the in between, the way to work, if we want everything to Allah, and actually, if you just think about everything I do to Allah, everything else will be removed, isn't it? Why is that? Because can I say I want to waste my time for Allah? That would be silly. Can I say I want to be very lazy for Allah? It just doesn't work, right? So when I put this in my mind, I'm doing everything for Allah, it will exclude everything else. And that's the way to practice it until we reach there. So, how to train ourselves? The advice first is focus on the hereafter. In each thing we do, in any project we do, don't we usually think about that? If I'm going to this company, what's in it for me? I have to say, I mean, in my work, one of the companies tried to do a study for their product, so we were interested, but another person should sign for it. So when I went to that other person, the first question, what's in it for us? Never thought about that. But that's how everybody think. What's in it for me? Why I'm doing it? But how far we think? For example, I want to build a house because I want to secure shelter for my children and for myself. I want this company, or actually I want to arrange my retirement because I'm thinking that I'm living to 70 years old. We arrange things up to our grave. We don't think after that. The reality is we need to think about hereafter. So we need to focus on how far we plan. The Prophet ﷺ said, if you want to do something, think about its after effect first. And we always think, okay, this is in our daily life. But the reality is, if we want to do anything, let's see what's in it for me in the hereafter. And that's how our Prophet wants us to focus our function. Right. So this is the first thing. Second is sincerity. And sincerity, everything we do should be for Him Almighty, right? So usually our salah is that, and all these function, it's definitely for Him. But, well, not definitely, but we will think it is for Him, inshallah, for Him. But if we do something not compulsory, if we do a voluntary thing, and definitely we think in ourselves, this is for Him, right? But the question is it really for Him? How we test it is when somebody come and say, well done. Does me come or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does, unfortunately. The other test is, this is the positive test, there's a negative test. So you went to volunteer and somebody came and said, look at this rubbish work. And this really, it does hurt, right? And believe me, there is no work to Allah and to goodness without having this. Otherwise, you have to be tested. And if you don't, this is not the real challenge. It's just a preparation. So in each thing you do, somebody will come and tell the negative thing. Here is the test. If I'm doing it for Allah, it's not stopping me. I should continue because I never done it for myself. And actually, in a way, it's good because that took the little me from me. But it can go further and until it reached to the level of Imam Hussein, when it's really reached to the level that it's really hurting still with them. Right. So nothing personal should stop me. This will increase our knowledge in Allah, because if somebody hurts you while you are serving them, so for example, you are helping somebody to shift their house, and while you are doing this, he keeps on telling you, what a lazy worker, and he keeps on giving negative thing. Now this is hurting, but you are doing it for Allah to help him. Just imagine what Allah helps us. Allah every day helps us, subhanahu wa ta'ala. But how many people swear on him? How many people do kufr on him? How many people just ignore what he does? He is still doing all these things. So if we want to feel and understand how he does things, we have to go through what he goes through. And it's not easy, I can tell you. Third thing is to do an extra effort to be closer. These months, Rajab, Sha'ban, Ramadan, are the time for us to be closer. We need to talk to him. He said, the best thing my servant does is doing what I wanted him to do. So this is our salah, siyam. But he continues. But he keeps on, that's the abd, he keeps on doing extra things to get closer and closer to me until I love him. And once I love him, I will be his hearing that he hears with, and his insight that he perceives with. So this is the love. It's not enough, for example, I know that Zakaria is good. If I don't call him and try to be closer, we don't have this love. We just have some respect. So if we imagine that there is a rocket and trying to come out of the atmosphere of the earth, we need to give them, or actually a shuttle, we need to give them this rocket to get them out, and then the rocket will fall, and the shuttle, if there is no further power in the shuttle, it just stay here swimming, while it needs more action to go further. So just imagine that's exactly what our salah, our psalm is, the rockets that takes us out, but to go further is our nawafil. You know what's nawafil? It's the extra thing. So Imam Askari says, getting closer to Allah Almighty is a trip, can't be done but by riding the night. This is Salatul Layl, and doing tafakkur at night. So to reach there, that's the only way to go to Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So what will happen if we do not seek Allah? First is addiction. That's big name, addiction. Yes. If we do not surrender to Allah Almighty, we are servant to something else. So we are going to be addicted to our tea, or to our coffee, again, to our computer, to our TV, to our chocolate. We are going to be addicted to all these things, to our books, stories, novels. We are getting films, movies. We are going to be addicted to all that, unfortunately. I'm not talking about haram addiction, but all these are addictions, and that's because we are not connected. This is because we are not addicted to Allah. Can anybody claim that he is addicted to Allah? Now what's addiction to Allah? That if you don't go and talk to him, you feel something missing. We don't. Actually, we force ourselves to talk to him because we think we should. We are not addicted. We need to have this addiction. And this addiction, other addiction comes from ego, but the addiction with Allah will heal all these. So that's one thing. The second is, we seek pleasure in worldly things. Like, you know the concept of no pain, no gain? And this is actually the reality on earth. You don't have a pleasure unless you have some pain. For example, you won't have a fun go on holiday unless you worked hard. For example, can you imagine that every day you have holiday? You will get bored. I can tell you. The same thing with sleeping. Can you imagine that you are sleeping forever? What's the fun in that?
Hibernation.
But while you will feel the joy of sleeping when you're tired. So no pain, no gain. Now, how does it work then in hereafter? In Jannah, they said you are always happy. Well, there is no pain, because there is no pain in Jannah. So how do you gain? The gain, because what you are looking for in Jannah is always changing for you. Because, for example, when Allah described the fruit of Jannah, when they get it, they, whoa, didn't we get this yesterday? And then when they eat it, it's totally different. And that means it's not the fruit that we are talking about. It's something more. It's more pleasure. And because Allah is never last, and we are trying to get closer to Him, so the joy will be never lasting joy. And they said sometimes the people of Jannah, after 50,000 years, they reached what the Prophet ﷺ was in this life. So you can imagine, where is the Prophet now? Because 50,000 years ago, when he was in the world, he will already pass all this joy. The last thing is to be ignorant knowledge collector. And I'm taking this from one of the scholars, and it's beautiful. He said, now we think that Islam is so prevalent and many scholars, many books, but the problem is they know everything about the book except what the book really saying. It's impossible to understand Islamic text unless you practice what's telling you. People separated the connection between knowledge and practice as a Muslim thinkers to bring Islam back to its luminous days. We need to take the knowledge from the level of information acquisition and regurgitation to the level of being part of what we are and who we are. So the practice. And that's exactly what Imam Salih told Anwar al-Basri. Oh Abu Abdullah, knowledge is not through knowledge acquisition, but it's a light that Allah put in the heart of whom He wants to guide. So if you want the knowledge, you should find in yourself the reality of subservience, ubudiyya, to be a servant to God. That's what will take you to the knowledge. And search for knowledge by using it. You should use it so you get it. And all that is not good. At the end, you have to ask Allah for it. The last thing is, with all this, we'll be ignorant of Allah, definitely, because we put ourselves in front and we are not removing it. And definitely we'll be ignorant of our Imam of the time, Imam Hujjah, Hajjallah Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif, because he said, when he talked to Shaykh al-Mufid in his letter, he said, we are not neglecting you and never forgotten you, otherwise your enemy would have tortured you. Fear Allah and help us. So we are helping Imam for ourselves to get you out from this hard test that surrounded you. If our Shia, may Allah guide them to obey him, had gathered the power of their hearts to fulfill their promise, the beauty of meeting us would have not been delayed. What prevents us from reappearing is what we see from them that we hate and not expect from them. So that's really what prevents us from seeing him. So if we do seek this way, what will happen? Then, knowing Allah Almighty better, definitely. Through what? Through progressive disengagement from our I-ness. And that's what He says. O my servant, obey me, I will make you like me. I am self-sufficient, never in need. I will make you like me, self-sufficient, never in need. I say something to something, be, and it does. I will make you like me, saying to something, be, and it does. We can reach today, well, with lots of work. So reaching knowledge is through practice. Knowledge of Allah is not something cognitively taken, or it's not a cognitive exercise. It's through spiritual practice. So this ibadat, this extra ibadat you do in these 3 months is the way to go. And as Imam Askari says, getting closer to Allah is a trip, can't be done but by riding the night. It's the night prayer. And from the Prophet ﷺ, he said, show me things as they really are. Show me the truth as a real truth, and a falsehood as a real falsehood. And this only by seeing it in their practical true way. So to summarize all what we had in the last 2 lectures, so we can actually proceed quickly. We are trying to know Allah, and first we took the Quranic advice. So how can we be basir? As by perceiving. Now, what Islam is surrender, and what surrender means, it's surrender to Allah orders. But what prevents us from doing this is this I-ness, and the I-ness, unfortunately, comes from this self-overconfidence, which lead to arrogance, and these usually come from excess of things, like excess of money, of power, and nowadays of knowledge. How does it get built? It's from childhood, when the child starts to build this space around them and build the I-ness. Now, how to reach to the surrender then is by applying I want that I don't want. And this is by remove I from all the equations. And this will remove the idol of me first. Now, what makes us then blind from seeing God subhanahu wa ta'ala is the example of the mirror. It's either the mirror is defected, or it's then got rusted, or it's totally in different direction, or there's a veil preventing it, or it's tilted. How can we train ourselves? Is by focusing on the hereafter in all our actions, by having sincerity, so nothing will distract us from the main goal, even if it's hurt us and trying to, and by trying to get closer by talking to God, trying to use these months to talk. Now, if we don't do that, what will happen? First, we'll get addicted, and we're all addicted, unfortunately, and we will fail to gain the real pleasure because we are seeking pleasure through worldly things, and unfortunately we'll be like an ignorant knowledge collector without knowing how to use it, and this will lead us to being ignorant of God and ignorant of our Imam. Now, if we do get it, then we will, inshallah, know God in a better way, and this is only through practice. Practicing and doing what we are, or actually applying what we are learning. And with that note, we will have an end for our lecture. For as we agreed, after 2 lectures there will be some exercise that I will send you, inshallah. Sallu ala